Good morning. My name is Ellen Kokinda. I am calling the staff hearing officer meeting for January 12th, 2022. Thank you for being patient with us. We're running just a couple minutes behind due to some technical issues, but let's go ahead and get started on the meeting. Let's see. And the first thing we have is for preliminary matters is requests for continuances, withdrawals, or postponements, or addition of X agenda items. I do not have any requests for any of those things at this time. So moving on to preliminary matters, announcements, and appeals. We do not have any announcements or I don't have any announcements today. And thus far, no one has appealed any projects. So let me go ahead and open it up, public comment. So this is public comment for items not on today's agenda. So if you wish to comment for anything on today's agenda, you can wait for that later. And on the screen, we have instructions. If you wish to speak, you would raise your hand by clicking on the little hand icon at the bottom of your panel. While I'm waiting to see if anybody who wishes to speak, I can confirm that we did not have any additional public comment on items not on today's agenda. And still don't see any hands, so I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. And we can go ahead and open up our first project. Our first and only project today, which is 36 Rincon Vista Road. This is an 18,295 square foot site. It's currently developed with a 3-story, approximately 2,225 square foot single family residence. The proposed project involves demolition of the existing residence and construction of a new, approximately 3,250 square foot, 3-story single family residence, and alterations to the existing attached 2-car garage with a new trash enclosure attached to the garage. A new pool is also proposed as part of the project. Next slide. The discretionary applications under the jurisdiction of the staff hearing officer required for this project: a front setback modification to allow for the garage to be demolished and reconstructed in the front setback, with a trash enclosure addition to be located in the required 30-foot front setback, and an interior setback modification to allow for the proposed garage, trash enclosure, and a portion of the new residence to be located within the required 10-foot eastern interior setback. Next slide, please. And the last discretionary approval, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Thank you for muting, Kathy. The last discretionary action is an open yard modification to allow the required open yard to be located in the secondary front yard fronting Los Alturas Road. And the environmental analyst has determined that this project is exempt from further environmental review pursuant to CEQA guidelines 15301, existing facilities, and 15305, minor alterations in land use. So I would like to invite our case planner, Ms. Stephanie Swanson, to join us. And whenever you are ready, and we have Mr. Russell here, who's going to be pulling up the plans for us. And you can go ahead and give your presentation, then I'm going to ask the applicant to follow up. And I just want to make sure that we have our applicant here. Has she been promoted? Let's see, give me just one moment and we will promote the applicant. So give us just a moment. And Ms. Ballantyne, could you just confirm that you are here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you so
Great.
much. Excellent. So Stephanie, Ms. Swanson is going to start us off, and then I will ask you to join us for a follow-up, and we'll go from there.
All right.
Ms. Swanson, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Mr. Russell, if you can go to page 2, please. Can you zoom out just a tad? That's perfect. So we are looking at a site plan for 36 Rincon Vista, and it shows all 3 modifications that are being requested. So I want to start with the open yard modification. Open yard has to be located outside of a front yard. This particular lot is what's called a through lot meaning there's Rincon Vista Road to the north and there's Las Alturas to the south. Since there are two street-facing property lines, technically, even the back of the house where the open yard is shown in the gray hatch is in a secondary front yard, thus the requirement for the open yard modification. As we can see on the screen, there's clearly enough space on the lot to accommodate the 1,250 square feet of required open yard. And it's just a technicality in this case. The lot really doesn't front Las Alturas from a functional standpoint, but from a geographical standpoint, it does. And so this open yard is located in the secondary front yard, requiring an open yard modification. And staff is supportive of it because the lot is large enough to accommodate it, and it is a bit of a zoning technicality. We're also looking at a front and interior setback modification request. The front setback modification would be for the garage and trash enclosure at the front of the lot here. Currently, the garage is approximately 1 foot off of the property line and faces Rincon Vista. That garage would be demolished and reconstructed in the same footprint except for the new trash enclosure bump out, and would be essentially rotated and with the creation of a driveway so that there is turnaround on site rather than maneuvering within Rincon Vista Road. Staff is supportive of this front setback modification because the lot does have a 34% slope, and this area is already graded to be flat for the construction of a garage since there's already one there. And also it's not necessarily a nuisance concern or a public right-of-way concern that we would be typically concerned about with front setbacks. In this particular area, there isn't a sidewalk, and also it's a garage, not habitable space where you would be expecting noise and privacy concerns. And similar for the interior setback modification requests, we're looking at a portion of the garage, the trash enclosure, and then just slightly south down the floor plan, a bump out for a kitchen bay window. And so in all of these cases, it's not habitable floor area. It's windows and trash enclosures where people aren't meant to hang out in and create noise and concerns for neighbors. In this case also, the neighboring parcel is owned by the property owners of 36 Rincon Vista. So they own both 36 and 40 Rincon Vista, and 40 Rincon Vista is currently vacant. And Will, if you can go to page 6. The areas in red are what is included in all of the modification requests. And so you can see the bay window is only partially in the setback, and it's a very small portion. And so we're talking about a window that's attached to a counter. So it's not somewhere where somebody is going to be standing and looking out onto any kind of future development on this neighboring yard. And even if they were, there is a topography difference between the two lots, and there is existing landscaping in the form of trees to create a privacy boundary there. And then again, the garage and trash enclosure are not meant for habitation or living situations. It's a trash enclosure where somebody will be going to move those trash cans out to the street for trash pickup and going in and out of the garage for their cars. In regards to design review, the project was reviewed by the Single Family Design Board 3 times. At the last hearing on November 22nd, 2021, the SFDB took a series of straw votes regarding each modification and said that each modification was aesthetically appropriate. And then finally, for environmental review, the lot is not located in any kind of sensitivity overlay areas. We didn't require any kind of reports for environmental review to determine that it is exempt from CEQA. CalGEM confirmed that the project has no active oil well sites or known contaminated soils on site. And there are also no hazardous waste sites within 1,000 feet of this particular parcel. There are some geological areas of concern, such as expansive soils, but that would be addressed through engineering in the building department. The city's architectural historian confirmed that the existing house is not historic and construction of this house would not impact any kind of designated historic resource. And the project can be found exempt from CEQA. So that is the end of my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Swanson. I appreciate it. And now I'd like to ask Ms. Valentine to join us and walk us through any aspects of your project that you wish to share with me. Thank you.
Hi, Ellen. Thank you. Yeah, Stephanie did a great job of explaining our project, and there's really only one thing that I'd like to add to her presentation, and that would be if we're actually on the site plan, which is great. Will, if you don't mind just zooming into the driveway area, we can see a little bit better. There's a medium dashed line that kind of comes off of the front of the garage and then down towards the residence, and that actually indicates the existing development. And as you can see, we're demolishing a lot of the development that is currently within the front setback. And so although the garage footprint will remain, we're really reducing the amount of structure that's within that area, in addition to providing better transportation and safer maneuvering for cars, since they will not be exiting directly onto Rincon Vista. And we can see that also a little bit more clearly on page 4, there's a site section that shows a red dashed line that indicates the outline of the existing residence. And the bottom there, you can see that that whole portion of the existing residence, which is like a bedroom and a bathroom entryway, is being removed as well. So we're providing a lot more relief from the street from a visual standpoint with this proposal. And that's the only other thing I'd like to add.
Thank you, Ms. Valentine. If I may ask if you could thank you for turning off your video. I'm going to open up public comment right now. If you wish to speak on this particular item, please raise your hand by clicking on the raised hand icon at the lower portion of your screen, and I will call on you. And when you are called on, you'll get a pop-up about unmuting yourself. So give me just a moment to see if anybody wishes to speak. I don't see any raised hands at the moment, but I do want to acknowledge that I received public comment from the following individuals: Daniela Johnson, Mark Linville, Sandy DeRoos, Michael and Ruth Collins, and Richard Watruba. So please, our secretary will be acknowledging that and putting that in the record. And I still do not see any raised hands for this particular item. So I will go ahead and close public comment and ask Mr. Russell if you could go back to the site plan. I want to acknowledge a couple of things about this project. I went out to the site, so I was able to see the street and the neighborhood and understand kind of the complexities of the site. I watched the most recent single family design board meeting in which they did the straw vote and heard all the public comment from there. I understand, I read through the public comment that was sent to me, that was distributed. And I just want to be really clear about what my role is with these modification requests. I have certain purview. The design aesthetics is not within my purview. That is left to the single family design board. So I will not be addressing the aesthetics of the residents, and just want to make sure that that's really clear. a couple other things. There are instances that will be things that came up in the public comment that will be addressed at the building permit stage. So the applicant must receive land use approvals, then design review approvals, and upon receiving those discretionary approvals, then has to submit for a building permit, which this project would then be routed to all of the different departments and divisions to make sure it complies with all the regulations, so that many of the concerns would be addressed at that time. So I just want to, again, make sure it's clear what my purview is to look at these modification requests and the specific things. I wanted to just ask staff to acknowledge and maybe just walk us through that the Transportation Division did review this project. Ms. Swanson, if you could just clarify that just share what you've learned from transportation that would be helpful about the driveway turnaround.
Sure. So this kind of project, whenever there's a new garage, is routed to the Transportation Division for their review, and they ensure that the parking design standards for the city are met and that the minimum amount of paving is provided so that it's not an excess amount of paving either in a setback or not in a setback, just as little paving is necessary to accommodate the maneuverability of vehicles safely on the site. And so they did indeed confirm that this project meets all transportation development standards. The project was also reviewed by the fire department in regards to landscaping.
Thank you. I appreciate you acknowledging that. I guess I'm just curious to hear from the applicant kind of what the rationale was for providing the drive, to create a turnaround area versus the current orientation of the garage. If Ms. Valentine, if you could join us and respond to that question.
Yeah, absolutely. If we kept the current configuration of the garage, it's kind of a nuisance to the street. It provides a safety issue because when you're pulling in and out of the garage, you're unable to see oncoming traffic or pedestrians walking. As already acknowledged, there's not a sidewalk in this area. So we were trying to initially provide a project that was in full compliance, of the zoning ordinance. And because of the slope of the property and the geological issues that were mentioned before, it became apparent that we really needed to keep the garage in its current location, but we wanted to improve upon the access by creating the driveway.
And could you provide the rationale for the location of the trash enclosure where you're proposing it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's not really anywhere else on this site to put it. The slope is really extreme, and in order to haul the cans to the pickup location, which is immediately adjacent the street, that was the best area. Currently, there is no trash enclosure at all, and so we wanted to provide one, for screening and also vermin. And so this one is one that's actually, it has a low roof that no one can really stand in. It's just access for the trash to be taken from the residence directly into the enclosure through the garage. And then there's an access door on the street to pull the bins out for the trash pickup.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to think if there are any other questions. And can you talk a little bit about the bay window and the location of it and kind of the, just kind of your thoughts on where it's located and just the encroachment in the setback?
Yeah, absolutely. If we turn to, I believe it is page 10, we can get a visual of the bay window on the elevations. This is just an architectural feature that's really nice. And the bay window itself doesn't increase the visibility from the inside to any neighboring parcels. As you can see, there's a window immediately below that's within the same plane, and where a person would be standing in the kitchen, their visibility is actually reduced because of the side of the bay window. And we think it's just a really nice feature for the kitchen sink. It's a good architectural feature, and because of the location of the neighbors, you can see on sheet 2 on the site plan again, the closest neighbor is all the way down at 454 Las Alturas Road, which is adjacent where the open yard area is shown on page 2. That outline there is the closest neighbor. So there's nothing that can be seen out of the bay window. And on Rincon Vista Road, there's a really large, or 40 Rincon Vista, there's a large oak tree that will remain, that also provides additional screening from the window.
Okay. I think those are all of my questions at this time. I'm going to ask if you can turn your video off again. Thank you. And I'm ready to make my decision. I'm going to go ahead and start. Again, I just want to acknowledge that I went out on site. I looked at the street, understand kind of the topography of the site and the neighboring parcels. With the open yard modification, I agree with staff's assessment, of course, that first of all, the open yard modification is consistent with the intent and purpose of the municipal code, and that it's necessary to prevent, well, actually, I would slightly modify it to say that it's necessary to prevent an unreasonable hardship due to the physical characteristics of the site. This site has 2 front yards. The secondary front yard, which Ms. Swanson mentioned, is off of Las Alturas Road, is where the proposed open yard is. Clearly, this is a really large lot and has ample open yard space. So it's the actual characteristic of having 2 front yards makes it like there really is no conforming location for open yard. But because of just the sheer size of the lot and the open yard area, that does conform, aside from the being in the front yard, is ample, and it's really just a zoning technicality. So I support the open yard modification. And then moving on to, I'm going to go to the front setback modification. So I also agree that the front setback modification is consistent with the purpose and intent of the municipal code and necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot. The applicant has designed this particular area so that a turnaround could be accommodated on site, as opposed to backing straight out onto Rincon Vista Road. That the front setback, it more or less is the same kind of area and location of the existing garage, with exception to that small trash encroachment. But you're using the flattest area of the site to accommodate that and be able to bring a vehicle, maneuver a vehicle on and off the site and reorient it. So again, I think the front setback more or less remains the same with the new design, and that it's necessary to be able to create that. And again, I see this as an improvement with Transportation Division's review, trying to minimize the amount of paving that happens on site to be able to make that maneuverability and accommodate that garage use on the lot that wouldn't necessarily be backing out into the road, which is not preferred. Similarly, with the interior setback modification, I think it is consistent with the intent and purpose of the municipal code and necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot. The trash enclosure addition, that honestly is probably one of my bigger concerns, just in kind of the purpose of it. But as Ms. Swanson mentioned, and as I see from the plans, that this little bump out in the interior setback is really the only purpose of it is to take trash and recycling on and off the property. Generally, if it was going to have a use that would be, people would be in and out a lot more, I would have more of an issue with it. I understand that the owner owns the property next door, but the decisions that the staff hearing officer makes are really kind of run with the land and not ownership. So I'm very conscious of, if there were to be something developed there at a future date, to be thinking of it in regards to what would that person, what would that homeowner experience. So I can support the trash enclosure and the encroachment, given its limited use and just for that one thing. And same with the bay window. It's an architectural feature or detail that was also supported by the Single Family Design Board as being an appropriate improvement to the design. It's very minimal. The area will be, both of those areas will be screened, and the topography is pretty severe that it wouldn't be a nuisance or impact. The one nuisance concern I have is for the exterior, the door from the trash enclosure up to the street. As part of the building permit requirements, you need to have an exterior. Concerned up on with any exterior on the, unless building requires it, no exterior light on the wall closest to Rincon 40 Rincon Vista the street. It needs to be shielded so that there's no light trespass on the property across the street. Or 40 Rincon Vista. So that would be a condition that I add. But otherwise, it's helpful to have a place for the receptacles. There's substantive screening for both and landscaping for the trash enclosure and the bay window. And I see, Ms. Ballantyne, you have raised your hand. Please go ahead and.
Yeah, for me, the video froze right when you were explaining your condition for the door at the trash enclosure. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind repeating that for me.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. So what I'm saying is I'm most concerned about light trespass. So I know that the building requires that you have a light anytime you have an exterior door. And I'm just saying that the condition that I would add would be that the light needs to be shielded so that there's no light trespass on 40 Rincon Vista Road, or it's not a light beacon across the street, that light needs to be shielded so that it's just kind of focusing the light at the doorway and so that it's not going to be a light trespass nuisance to your neighbors.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I just want to make sure you're clear on that condition. And I think that is all that I have. That covers my concerns and what's happening. Again, if you are tuning into this meeting, there will be future meetings about the aesthetics of the project. And I suggest, if you're interested in following this project, that you become an interested party, which you can contact the Single Family Design Board secretary to follow up. If you are interested in the land use, my decisions, please note that all of my decisions may be appealed. I'm going to ask, thank you. All of my decisions may be appealed to the Planning Commission. And we have information here on the screen that you need to submit an appeal within 10 calendar days of this decision. In addition, the Planning Commission, any member of the Planning Commission could review my decision, if they feel that they had any concerns, could pull that up for the Planning Commission to also review. So that is the 10-day appeal notice if you're interested. And otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting for January 12th, 2022. Thank you so much.